Thank you guys for coming back to the second episode and the second interview of today for Welfare Wednesday. So today, right to the introduction, we have Gretsiel Bautista. Gretsiel was the District Academy trainer for a corporate pet stores grooming program. She progressed her way through every position that this company had to offer with more than 7 years. 7 years?
Almost 10. Almost 10 years.
Almost 10 years. 7 years is where I stopped talking to you. But anyway, 10 years of not only as a professional dog groomer, but also as a fantastic trainer and teacher. Gretsiel contributed to British Columbia's corporate grooming scene in ways that are unimaginable. Personal testimony, Gretsiel trained me through the Grooming Academy program back in 2019 and mentored me as I took on the role of salon leader at my location. The skills I learned through working with Gretsiel still impacts me to this day, and I can't wait for you to experience what her experiences as a trainer in professional dog grooming has to offer. So let's get on with the interview. Hello, Gretsiel. Long time no see. How are you today?
Good, good. How are you? It's nice to see you again. Thank you for inviting me on this live.
Pardon me, sorry?
Thank you for inviting me on this live.
Oh, of course.
Arya wanted to say hi.
Yeah. Shout out to Arya.
Hi, say hello.
Oh.
There you go. Yeah. Sorry, just being loud. So. Can you hear me well? Is it good? Okay, give me 1 second. Let me just pick her up.
Take your time. Of course, chat. If you have any, ask whenever, and I'll get to them when I can.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay, good.
So let's go on with the career questions. Of course, dog grooming is a very interesting industry. So can you tell me a little bit about how you went from working as a sales associate to eventually becoming the DAT, the District Academy trainer?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, initially I was from the Philippines, and when I moved to Canada, I started working at one of the pet company. And I started there as a cashier, and the manager there asked me if I am interested in becoming a dog bather. And I was like, yeah, for sure, because I do have a lot of dogs way back home, so I'm used to it. And I started working as a dog bather. I got trained there as a bather for a couple of weeks, and then I just got the hang of it after a couple of months. I wasn't really thinking of becoming a dog groomer back then because it's not something that I was really pursuing. I finished accounting, so it's not really my cup of tea. But yeah, there was that opportunity, and when I was a dog bather, I was also asked if I would be interested to become a dog groomer, which is a dog stylist. Mm-hmm. And back then in BC, we don't even have much of the academies going on. So I got sent to Ontario to be trained, and which I think is really cool because I got sent there and everything was paid for. So I was like, oh, this is amazing. So yeah, I did the training there for 4 weeks. I became a dog groomer, a certified groomer, but of course I was still an apprentice at the beginning. And then I got trained by one of my, colleagues in Richmond back then. And then, yeah, that's just how I started my career. And from then on, I became well-known groomer in that location, and then became a salon manager. And then that's how I worked my way up. And a couple of years later, I became a district academy trainer, which was the position of a person who teaches academy into different, areas around Canada.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah.
What a great career path. And also, speaking of which, almost 10 years with the company. What positive attribute about dog grooming kept you in the industry for so long?
I mean, dog grooming is, I love it because you work with dogs, not much of people, I guess. I like working with people as well, but of course, it's just kind of satisfying to work with dogs. I mean, not every single dog is good when it comes to dog grooming, but the fact that, you're taking care of this dog for quite some time, and you're making them, feel good, look beautiful, look great. It's just really a satisfying job. And at the same time, you build connections with the pet parents and the dog as well. So, you do get repeat clients every other month, or sometimes even every other, depending on how many weeks they need it. And that building that connection with the dog and with the pet parent is just really good. I think it's a really good career. So I stayed with that company for quite some time. I love dogs. I love working with them. I love people. Mm-hmm. And then when I became a DAT, I really love teaching students as well, as hard as it was. Yeah. It wasn't easy teaching students, but I know it brings me so much joy to see someone who's just starting and helping them get there, even though it's challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Definitely. Yeah, sometimes it feels like when you're grooming, you're seeing a dog every 6 weeks, which is part of their life too, right? It's hard to leave.
Sure, yeah.
On the contrary, though, what is something that you didn't like about dog grooming?
I mean, dog grooming is a physical job. It could be challenging on your body, especially for myself. I'm quite small. So when I have a big dog, it's a physical job. It's not easy. So that's one. And then I'd say the other one would be the temperament of dogs,
Mm-hmm.
because not every single dog is, like I said, is good. They're not just going to sit there and let you do everything you need to do. And then sometimes there are just challenging dogs that you just won't be able to finish.
Hmm.
And as much as you don't like that to happen, you need to think about their safety and your safety as well. So you just need to move on.
Yeah, for sure. All right. And of course, just a reminder for the chat, if you have any questions, please let us know. So moving on, do you think there are any qualities that are necessary for somebody to succeed as a dog groomer?
Yeah, I mean, there's really no roadmap in becoming a dog groomer, but of course, there are some qualities that you need to look for someone. So, for example, someone needs to be very patient. I think, if you don't have patience, it's really hard to get on with dog grooming because dogs will just keep on moving. They're not going to listen to you. They don't really understand sometimes. So you need to have patience. And then, of course, you need to think about your safety and the dog safety as well. So that's one of the most important thing. If when you become a dog groomer, you need to think about how you're going to finish, the job safely from start to finish. Safe for the dog, safe for you as well.
Hmm.
And then, of course, attention to detail is something that will come up later on once you learn how to do the dog grooming itself, like the styling and everything else.
Hmm.
You need to have attention to detail. It's something that it gets better as you're getting more experience. I think that's the other one. And I think you need to have compassion with dogs. Dogs are not they're not easy to deal with sometimes. So you need to have that compassion. If you love your job, you love dogs, you love working with it, I don't think there would be a problem. But of course, you need to have that compassion with animals.
Hmm. I've got a couple questions in the chat here, actually. So from Bria, what do you think as an employee, what do you look for in a grooming company that you're considering working for? And are there any companies that are better than others? So I guess for grooming, we could talk about private shops,
Yeah,
doggy.
for sure. I mean, there are some private salons, of course. There's pros and cons with working in a public salon and a private salon. In a public salon, of course, they have more safety procedures as opposed to the private ones. Because at the private ones, they don't even have cameras. People don't really see what they're doing, things like that. But in a public salon, they train you differently in a way that there's cameras everywhere. They're more transparent with people and the pet parent. So you see, like, you have a visibility of what's happening in there. And they're more laid out with how they do things just because they're public. They're more they're more well known within a company.
Yeah. And just another thing to add on to that is that there's also the option of looking into veterinary grooming as well. So there's groomers that are attached to veterinary offices. Personally, I don't have too much experience in that field, but that is an option that people can look into
Yeah,
as
for
well.
sure.
Yeah. And then Samara is also wondering, how long is the training to be a dog groomer
I
from
think
start
it depends. There are some courses in BC that I think last for like 3 months, I believe, 3 to 6 months, depending on the courses.
to? Hmm.
In some public like grooming academies, they last from 3 to 4 weeks.
Hmm.
So it really depends. Like there are some grooming schools that do a lot of bookwork first, and then after that they do the what do you call that? Like the hands-on training for a few weeks.
Yeah,
Really depends.
yeah, for sure. And then are there opportunities for working up to different levels in the
Oh,
grooming industry?
yes, yeah, absolutely. So, like when you become a dog groomer, of course, you get certified and all that. But in the future, let's say if you want to learn Asian fusion, you want to learn something else in the future, there's so many courses that you can take. You can even compete. Like there's a lot of competitions around, Alberta, BC, everywhere. It's not something I did, but there's definitely a lot of opportunities up there.
Something you could have absolutely done though, Gretchen.
I
Skill.
Mimi should join there.
Yeah. Um, okay, so let's see. What would you recommend for somebody that is getting into the dog industry now as a complete beginner?
Yeah, it's an amazing career. To be honest, like I was at the dog grooming career for like almost 10 years, and it's something that I really love. So I think it's a really good career for you, and there's a lot of career opportunities, like literally anywhere. Dog groomers are in demand. And there's also a lot of good money into it, especially if you are just persistent in like working as a dog groomer. I used to groom about 6 to 8 dogs before, and I make a lot of money out of it. So it's really a good career. And like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of opportunities out there. It's endless. So if you don't want to stay as a dog groomer, you can become a dog grooming manager or a salon manager. You can compete to other areas of the world, and even learn a lot of different types of cuts, breeds, things like that. So I think it's a really great career. So yeah, I would recommend you looking into it. What else? I think it's really something to look forward to, and if you love dogs, you love animals, it's a great job. And we also do cat grooming in other locations, like so. If you're into cats, it's also something.
For sure. I think people do rabbit grooming too, right? I've seen
Yeah,
that.
I think so. And then sometimes even hamster, like some of them do, yeah,
They-
nail trimmings and stuff.
Very interesting. For people in the channel, also a recommendation to you, Gretchen, if you haven't seen it, is that there is 2 shows I would recommend on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Scissors Down, under the main series Dogs, and the other one is under 7 Days Out, which is the Westminster Grooming.
Oh,
West
yeah.
good recommendations for people, especially Scissors Down if you're interested in pursuing grooming. Okay, so I'm gonna give the chat another 15, maybe 30 seconds to come up with any questions related to the career aspect of things. And then we're gonna move on to the animal welfare questions. And of course, Gretchen, if you have anything you'd like to add, please feel free.
Oh yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I'll move on for now. If you have any questions, feel free to add on to it later as well. So for animal welfare questions, we actually had this conversation with somebody from BCSBCA earlier, but I'd like to ask again. Oh, we got another question actually. If someone gets licensed to work in Canada, do you know if you are able to work in different countries?
I think so. I think it just really depends on that country if you're eligible to work. Like if you need a work visa or something, of course that's something that can work. Like in US and Canada, it's pretty easy. We get a lot of groomers from the US or from Canada, vice versa. So yeah, I think so.
For sure. So this actually ties into our next question, is the certification side of things, is that while the corporate companies put their in-house trained groomers through a relatively rigorous certification program, there is no overarching organization that oversees general licensing of pet groomers in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
You personally think this is something that is necessary?
I mean, I think it would be great to have like, a generalized overview of like everything. Because yeah, like I totally agree. Like public and private companies, they're totally different in how they teach things.
Mm-hmm.
Even other grooming schools, like they're all pretty much different on how they do, the training and all that.
Yeah, for sure. And do you think there should be also more safety regulation to be put in place as a whole?
Oh,
So
yeah.
same thing is that corporate and private are very different when it comes to grooming.
Yeah, sure. I mean, when I come to like a private salon before, even other public salons, like when I see the scissors like pointing different way than the way I used to do it in my own company, it's just one of those things that kind of makes me feel like, like scared for the dog or for the groomer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it would be great to have some safety, procedures or protocols that, every single grooming salon or every other place should have. That would be, that would benefit the dog and us as well as a groomer.
Mm-hmm. And do you think these, because the corporate policies, do you think they are more about protecting the pets, or do you think they're more about protecting themselves in a situation where injury does occur?
I think it's for both. So I think we need to think about, like I said, the safety of the pet and of course our own safety as well. So, I mean, as a dog groomer, it's not your intention to hurt a dog at all. That's not your intention at all. So that's the reason why a lot of companies put, safety procedures in place to make sure that we follow all of those, so that, the dogs are safe, and at the same time, we're also safe on our side.
For sure. And I wanted to ask, is there something that you wish pet parents who have never experienced grooming themselves to know? Is there a misconception about dog grooming that you'd like to clear up with everybody?
Like that pet parents did? Yeah, for sure. I do get a lot of like pet parents. They come to like a pet store and they buy clippers or scissors and do the grooming on their own at home. And then they will come to the grooming salon with the dog that's just butchered.
Yeah.
And sometimes they even hurt the dog, or like they scrape the skin or they cut them. So for me, that's kind of painful to see, because instead of using, a professional service for their pets, they try and do it at home. And unfortunately, when they fail, it's us who needs to fix it. So yeah, that for me is kind of sad, because, you as a groomer, sometimes there's just things that you can't fix, especially if they shave the dog down quite short, and they did the haircut like, just the way, because they're not knowledgeable. This is the reason why we have school and we have a proper training for dog grooming. It's because we are professionals, and it's something that we learn professionally.
Yeah, it's definitely not something that you can just kind of pick up
Yeah.
without proper training, for sure. Is there anything else you would like to add when it comes to, safety regulations and just overall things about dog grooming that you wish people knew?
I think that's pretty much it. As a dog groomer, of course, it would be great to have everything that you need, because sometimes at school you don't really get everything. I think it's an ongoing knowledge, right? Like as you gain more experience in grooming, that's when you realize, okay, there's a lot of things that I could do better. Even as a dog groomer, sometimes you make mistakes. You might end up cutting a dog, or doing something that you didn't really intend to do, and that's how you learn. That's how you develop your skills, develop your safety, your safety techniques, things like that. And it's really by experience. If you don't keep on getting experience, or like groom dogs more and more, you don't really get to get a hold of how to use the scissors properly, or clippers, or even just brushing the dog well. It's a technique that you have to build on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree. I think, yeah, everything. I definitely agree with everything you say. So I'm gonna give that another 30 seconds or so to come up with any remaining questions they may have for dog grooming. A lit here. So just gonna give them a couple more seconds. Did you enjoy your move?
Yes, yeah, I know. It's in Calgary, you get a bigger place as opposed to a very, very tiny apartment in BC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always tell my friends is the pipeline is always like Vancouver to Richmond
Yeah.
to Delta, Calgary.
Yeah. And I heard it's always been raining there, like recently.
Oh yeah.
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 The nice thing with Calgary, it's cold, but it's actually not that bad. But it's always sunny, like literally every day.
Yeah, for sure. I remember going to Edmonton and it wasn't horrible actually.
Oh,
I thought it would, but because it's not so humid, it's not that bad. I have a
question.
question. So, is there anything you would change about your career path journey?
I'm not with the dog industry at this point, just because I changed career and I moved to a different province as well. But I think, if I was still there, I don't think I'm going to change anything. I would love to learn a little bit more about the competition side, like learning a little bit more about Asian fusion or other techniques, other types of grooming skills that I could get to develop my own skills. But yeah, it's like I said, it's an endless career opportunity. There's a lot of ways that you can do. Like you can even have your own salon if you wanted to, right? So, but yeah.
Yeah. And then something just quickly I want to add on is like another question for you is that for me, a lot of my colleagues did end up with some relatively permanent injuries. Is there anything that you would recommend to prevent that as a new groomer?
Yes, yeah. So like one of the most common injury that groomers get is like the carpal tunnel or tendonitis.
Yeah.
So actually I never got that for some reason. I've been working as for almost 10 years, but I never get it. My recommendation for that is to always exercise your arm and kind of massage it, don't overwork it. And as a person, you know what's your capabilities. Like I myself, I was grooming 6 to 8 dogs before, and I get tired, but I know my limitation. But for you, if you know how much you can lift, you know how much dogs you can finish in a day, I think you should just limit yourself to how much you can do, so that you don't end up having those carpal tunnel or tendonitis. It's the repetition of movement. That's the reason why a lot of groomers get that. But if you are if you're always exercising your arm, kind of doing different movements that doesn't go with the dog grooming, I think it will help a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, right.
Sorry?
Same thing with lower back injuries.
Oh, yes, yeah. So as a groomer, you don't necessarily sit a lot, but I think in some private salons, they sit so that it doesn't hurt their back. But I think it's a lot of stretching, to be honest. Like, if you do a lot of stretching, I mean, it's with any other job. Like even as a, I don't know, as a cashier, you're standing there all day. Sometimes it hurts your back or it hurts your legs. So it's just a lot of stretching that you need to do before before you work and after you work.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Bria has another question. How do you apply for the schooling?
So it really depends on which company and which school you're going to apply to. It's very easy to apply though. Usually they just train you to become a baser first, and then after that, that's when they send you to a grooming academy. There are some private grooming schools that, you can definitely just apply and then you pay the fees, tuition, and then you go, they train you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think that structure is pretty similar for private and public as well.
Similar.
Usually like apprentice and then training.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're pretty much good for here today. Thank you so much for chatting with us, Gretsiel.
You're welcome.
And
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. And the chat and for viewers that are watching this in the future, if you have any questions that wasn't answered regarding dog grooming, please feel free to DM us on Instagram. And if I can't answer those questions, I will pass them on to Gretsiel for you. And if you have any specific welfare topics you'd like to learn about, please let us know in the Instagram DMs as well. And thank you for joining us today, and have a great rest of your Wednesday. Thank you, Gretsiel, so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.